Hello and welcome to the show. We call it Molotsky on Money. What is this show all about? The clues are in the title. We'll be discussing money, specifically investment strategies, taxes, estate planning, insurance, and many other topics. And all of it is designed to help you and your family improve your overall financial picture. The Molotsky part of our title comes from our panel. Their name is Molotsky. Each week, we'll have Stan Molotsky, president and founder of the SHM Financial Group, as well as Lee Molotsky, vice president of the SHM Financial Group. So stay tuned because we have valuable information on each show, and tonight is no exception, and we hope that everyone can benefit from this show. And Stan, you've been around since 1958. You notice how I always start the shows by reminding you how long you've been around.
Hard to imagine.
But as part of what you do, and I'm going to ask you to explain what you do, but it's kind of been an evolution since 1958, correct?
Well, one thing I learned a long time ago, nothing stays the same. Everything is constantly in motion and everything is constantly changing, and certainly is the financial services industry. You know, originally when I started way back in 58, all we did was, for financial planning, was handle, stocks and mutual funds. There were no such things as ETFs, and tying in the planning process was a thought in somebody's head that didn't come into being until the 70s, when I got very involved in the planning process and creation of the Certified Financial Planning designation and all those kinds of things. And then we moved, at that point, the practice from just the security side to some of the fixed kinds of things, including the insurance programs. And then when Lee joined the practice in the 80s, he pushed us further, into the managed money and some of the other kinds of things. So it's an ongoing, constant kind of movement. Just as with tonight's topic,
right?
How did we get involved in that?
Okay, we're going to talk about that. But Lee, you have many tools. We've said that many times here on the show in your kit where you can help people, and this kind of was an evolution, as we said earlier, to getting into the reverse mortgage, and it came about as a result of you being financial planner and getting involved in trying to help people.
Correct.
Talk about that.
Yeah, well, it extended from a number of our clients. We kept receiving inquiries about, can you help us with a reverse mortgage? What is a reverse mortgage? Should we do a reverse mortgage? And we were always like, that's really not what we're involved with. But it evolved into the point where we got involved with a reverse mortgage through a national mortgage company called Gradient Home Mortgage, and they're a national financial planning, national mortgage firm, and they specialize in reverse mortgages through our office.
So Stan, this became something that people, and I know we do a weekly radio show, we've been doing it for years, and we get calls all the time, and you get calls. What is it? Does it work? Can it help me?
It triggered us to get more involved. And we had a client that we've worked with for a long time, came in, we were doing their annual review, and he was concerned about, he was spending, $2,000-3,000 a month extra, as was his sister, to help their mother, who was 92, living in her home up in Bergen County, fully paid for, but they were helping fund someone to come in almost 24 hours a day to help the mother. But she refused to move from the house, and they weren't going to do anything to upset the mother. Long story short, we said to them, do you ever consider this thing called a reverse mortgage, which Lee brought up? And they said, well, she's 92, she could never qualify for that. So Lee said, it has nothing to do with her age, it's simply a factor of what is the value of the property. And long story short, I went through the whole process, and they wound up taking out a reverse mortgage for the mother for a couple $100,000, which they then put into the bank, which they had powers of attorney to utilize to help fund the mother's existence, and it cut their need.
Right, they didn't have to spend that money anymore.
Exactly. So it was,
that $5,000 that they were paying collectively, they didn't have to pay that anymore.
So
okay.
That was part of how we initially got involved using the Gradient Home Mortgage division for the reverse mortgage.
Okay, we know that there's a lot of questions about it, so we thought we would start off the show by explaining to you, of course our topic, as we said, is tonight is reverse mortgages. What exactly is it and how could it potentially help? But we thought we would also give you the definition. A reverse mortgage allows you to borrow against the equity you've established in your home. Instead of making monthly payments, you can choose to receive them, which is the reverse part of a reverse mortgage. You can also choose to receive your loan proceeds in a lump sum credit line or combination of the above. Lee, explain that,
Yeah,
please.
one of the things, the first word says it allows you to borrow. It is borrowing, but normally if you have a mortgage, you're expected to pay the mortgage back. That's a regular mortgage. Anytime you borrow something, you're expected to pay it back.
But a reverse, that's why it's a reverse. There is no payment, correct? There
That's
is no
correct.
monthly payment.
You are not under any obligation whatsoever to actually pay back the mortgage. It's and make it easier to understand. It's actually, I think, I would consider more of an advancement than a mortgage. So
All right.
if you think of
That's the part where people have trouble understanding it,
Okay.
right? Because they think
Sure.
mortgage payment, but here there is no payment.
there's no payment,
Okay.
you don't make any payments,
Right.
And it allows you to utilize or use the equity in your home. So if you have a home, let's say it's worth $300,000 as an example, and you have a mortgage, the mortgage can get paid off, and you may be able to put some additional funds into the bank. If you don't have a mortgage, you can get an advancement of the equity on your house by utilizing this instrument called a reverse mortgage. And there are a number of steps and things that you have to go through in order to.
We're going to explain that throughout the course of this show, so stay tuned. But there are a lot of myths and misconceptions about reverse mortgages, so we thought we would show you this brief video, so pay attention and we'll come back and talk about it. This is all about myths about reverse mortgages. Just pay attention.
Worked hard to build equity in your home. Perhaps now is the time to put that equity to work for you. If you are age 62 or older, a reverse mortgage can enable you to convert some of your home's equity into tax-free funds. What you do with that money is your choice. Perhaps you will choose to pay bills or prepare for upcoming expenses. Or maybe you will take that vacation you have always dreamed of. In today's world of 24-hour TV broadcast, you have likely caught a glimpse of a celebrity spokesperson promoting the benefits of a reverse mortgage. Benefits there are many, yet with a product that reverses the traditional wisdom on home mortgages, there are also many myths. The most important thing to realize when considering a reverse mortgage is that it pays to be educated. Myth 1. I will no longer own my home. Many of you have heard that once you take out a reverse mortgage, the bank owns your home. That is not the case. A reverse mortgage does not transfer ownership. It does provide the bank a lien against your home, as any mortgage does. Myth number 2. A reverse mortgage comes with big out-of-pocket expenses. This couldn't be further from the truth. Depending on your individual goals, there are many options available. Most reverse mortgages come with no out-of-pocket cost. As for the fees, there are options available with little to no fees and options available with fairly standard fees that aren't much higher than a traditional forward mortgage. Myth number 3. I could be forced out of my home. That is not true. As long as you live in the home as your primary residence, maintain the home to HUD standards, and continue to pay your property taxes and homeowners insurance, you run no risk of being forced out of your home. Myth number 4. A reverse mortgage is for a desperate person with little income. Not the case. More and more seniors are electing to take out a reverse mortgage to convert equity to cash, whether there is an immediate need or not. Myth number 5. I need good credit and income to qualify. Since there are no repayment requirements typically associated with a reverse mortgage, there is not a need to demonstrate that you can pay the loan back. A reverse mortgage can not only be a tool to supplement income, it can also be a tool that allows you to pay off other debt and keep your home without the burden of a large house payment. If you are considering a reverse mortgage, take the time to understand the product. We offer continuous training seminars to promote awareness and understanding of the reverse mortgage product and process. We are committed to providing you the tools you need to make an informed decision.
He's coming out. Okay, there you have it. A lot of the myths that are involved with reverse mortgages, and Lee, you've gotten those plus many more, I'm sure, when people have talked to you about reverse mortgages.
Yeah, there are that and another busload, so to speak, of misunderstandings in the reverse mortgage industry. The world has changed in the world of financial planning, estate planning. The world has also changed in the world of reverse mortgages. So it's worth exploring, we think, and that's why we're bringing this to you today. one of the first steps you want to do if you're interested in a reverse mortgage or even exploring it, we had the number up there, 1-855 HUD reverse. That's 1-855 HUD reverse. That's step one, and we'll talk a little bit further in some more detail about what the reverse mortgage process is and some of the benefits that are involved with a reverse mortgage.
Okay, we have plenty more to talk about here on the show. It's Molotsky on Money. We're here every week at this time discussing a variety of financial issues, and tonight is no exception, of course. We're talking about reverse mortgages. What is it? Is it for you? Can it help? We have plenty more to talk about. More information on tonight's program, Molotsky on Money. With Stan and Lee Molotsky, I'm your host, John DeMasi. More to talk about on the show. Stay with us. We're coming back after these words. Don't go away.
Join Stan and Lee Molotsky and their guests for their next series of all-important workshops. It's a unique opportunity for you to meet Stan and Lee and the SHM Financial Group, as well as have your questions answered. All workshops are complimentary and include lunch or dinner. Call us to discuss the reverse mortgage concept. If you should decide to proceed, you're required to go through a 60-minute phone or office interview. We will provide you with a list of HUD counselors you can call who will provide you with the counseling. Call us at 1-855-HUD-REVERSE. That's 1-855-483-7383.
Welcome back to Molotsky on Money. I'm your host, John DeMasi, with Stan and Lee Molotsky. We're here every week at this time. Good to have you with us tonight, talking about reverse mortgages. You heard Lee give out that number. If you have any kind of a question about reverse mortgages, 1-855-HUD-REVERSE. That is the toll-free number where you can get more information, 1-855-HUD-REVERSE. Basically, Lee, if somebody has a question, they could just call that number and that would start the process.
That's correct. And it may not be for them, but what that would do would be allow us to speak with that individual about the concept. You know, does it make sense for you? What's involved? I mean, we're going to get further along into what's involved with the reverse mortgage process in just a few minutes as we proceed along here this evening. But there are a couple steps one must take in order to get a reverse mortgage. You can't just walk in and say, I want one right now.
Right.
There are a few steps you have to go through.
And we're going to go over that, but we want to go over these myths again because these are the common ones. We showed you the myth bus in our last segment, and we're going to go over this again. Myth number one, I will no longer own my home. Now, this is kind of, Lee, people don't get this because when you have a regular mortgage, you pay the bank, and if you don't pay the bank, well, then the bank takes your home. So, I mean, you own a home, but the bank always is involved. So it's the same thing here, correct?
That's correct, except
It's not the same because they can't take the home. They can only take the home under certain circumstances. You own that home, and you've taken out the equity that's in that particular house. You may have paid off the existing mortgage, put the money in the bank. You still own the home as long as you pay the property taxes and the insurance and the upkeep on the home.
If you do that, they can't take the home.
Exactly.
Correct.
All right.
If just like a normal house, if you own the home, whether it's paid off or you have a mortgage, you still have to pay your property taxes. You still have to pay your homeowner's insurance. If with a reverse mortgage, the same thing is true. You still have to pay your property taxes. You still have to pay your homeowner's insurance. If you don't do that, you have a problem with a reverse mortgage.
Okay, this is myth number two as we go through these again here on the show. There are big out-of-pocket expenses. Lee, you want to explain that?
The answer is no. There are some expenses, depending upon your situation, that can be taken out of the proceeds of the reverse mortgage. There are two expenses that I think every reverse mortgage has, if I'm not mistaken. Number one, in order to get a reverse mortgage, if you're interested, again, 855-HUD-REVERSE to explore it. That's 1-855-HUD, H-U-D, reverse. We explore the idea, and if it makes sense to you, step number one would then be to call from a list of HUD-approved counselors. Nothing to do with us, nothing to do with Gradient Home Mortgage.
That's a requirement, correct?
That's a requirement
to get the reverse mortgage.
Correct. Again, these reverse mortgages are provided through HUD as a government agency. So
Right. So there's a HUD counseling, And then there's the home appraisal,
So
correct?
you go through the HUD counseling, you obtain your HUD certificate. We then sit back down and talk further about your individual situation. Once you decide,
That HUD certificate, though, just point out that that is only good for a certain amount of time.
yes, that HUD certificate at the moment is good for 6 months. So once you obtain that HUD certificate, it costs about $100, $125 at most. Now that you have the ability to sit down and apply for and obtain a reverse mortgage, if your situation renders
You
it.
cannot take that next step without that
Without the
certificate.
HUD counseling. Okay,
Right. So-
all right, and then we'll talk about the appraisal. All right, we got to move on here. Myth number 3: I could be forced out of my home, and this is simply not true, Lee. We just
Correct.
talked about that.
Can't be forced out of your house. If you become ill, whatever, and you need to go into a nursing care facility, or you're out of the house for a year and a day, the house must then be put up for sale. So are you forced out of your home? No, but if you become ill, if there's 2 of you, and you both become ill, and are both out of the house for a year and a day, the house must be sold.
Okay.
But if one of the 2 individuals in a family is still living in the home, then they continue to live in the home.
Explain, basically, if the house is sold, the loan that has been advanced on the reverse mortgage side gets paid off, and then the balance goes to whoever the heirs would
heirs
be.
happen to
Well,
be,
again, if they're still alive,
It
Yeah.
goes to
Right,
them.
it goes to them.
Which,
Okay.
which is a good point, because
Yes.
the owner of that house, even though they've taken out a reverse mortgage, still has the ability to sell that house at any time, and the same process. The money pays off with the money that has been advanced, and the balance goes to them.
Okay, myth number 4 here, we're going to talk about a reverse mortgage is for desperate people. Now, this is not true, correct, Lee?
well, the answer is no. I'm sure some people who have a difficult financial time at the moment, desperate or close to desperate, they may utilize a reverse mortgage. But I'd say in our office, 9 out of 10 cases are not desperate. So someone has
Like the example that Stan gave about the
yeah,
Our
she
clients who
wasn't
were-
desperate. She had $5,000 in the bank, a $400,000 home.
Well,
Is
she wasn't
desperate?
desperate because the son and daughter were helping fund the cost.
Right.
So this was a way
But
to
she
alleviate
had,
the cost.
she had equity in the home,
Exactly.
and you took the reverse mortgage
Didn't
out.
realize,
Right.
They did not realize as a unit that they could utilize this.
Right.
So
Okay.
it's for people that have issues and for people that
And if
just
it makes
really want to
sense.
use the equity in their house for
Right.
their own lives.
Okay.
Yep.
And myth number 5 here, as we go through these, our final myth here: I need good credit and income. No, correct? Because there's
Correct.
no credit check and there's no income requirements. Because there's no payment being made. Correct?
Right. It's interesting from a banking standpoint. The bank, when a mortgage goes into default, a regular mortgage, the bank has an issue because they're not getting paid on the mortgage.
Right.
With a reverse mortgage, there's no payment that you have to make to the bank. So the banks, I think, are probably happier about reverse mortgages than they are regular mortgages in some instances, because all they're waiting on is later on in life when the people are no longer in the house, they've passed on, then the house is sold, that's when the banks come in and
We could probably do 200 myths, correct?
Well, the thing, it's a lot of times, in another particular case where the person was struggling with monthly expenses, the husband had died, the pension was cut, and she was struggling paying the mortgage. So by doing the reverse mortgage, it paid off her mortgage, which in turn saved her $700-800 a month that she was paying for that mortgage, and put $10,000-12,000 in the bank as a cushion. So there's all kinds of different scenarios that can be used for the betterment of the utilization of the reverse mortgage.
More to talk about here on this evening's program. It's Molotsky on Money. We're discussing reverse mortgages. Does it make sense for you? Do you qualify? Is it something that you would be interested in? Well, we have more to talk about here on the show. Don't forget that toll-free number if you want more information, 1-855-HUD-REVERSE. With Stan and Lee Molotsky, I'm your host, John DeMasi. We're coming back. More information on reverse mortgages on tonight's show after these words. Stay with us.
Join Stan and Lee Molotsky and their guests for their next series of all-important workshops. It's a unique opportunity for you to meet Stan and Lee and the SHM Financial Group, as well as have your questions answered. All workshops are complimentary and include lunch or dinner. Call us to discuss the reverse mortgage concept. If you should decide to proceed, you're required to go through a 60-minute phone or office interview. We will provide you with a list of HUD counselors you can call who will provide you with the counseling. Call us at 1-855-HUD-REVERSE. That's 1-855-483-7383.
Welcome back to Molotsky on Money with Stan and Lee Molotsky. I'm your host, John DeMasi. We're discussing reverse mortgages tonight here on the show. A lot of information out there, and unfortunately a lot of misinformation. Again, that toll-free number, 1-855-HUD-REVERSE, if you have a question, if you want to find out if you qualify. And basically, Lee, you just call that number and you'll kind of walk them through it.
We need about 15 minutes on the phone with you to go over some ideas and concepts and put together an illustration for you to see if it makes sense for you. At that point, what will happen is we'll then provide you with a list of HUD counselors. And at your convenience, you call 3 or 4 or 5 of them, get a feel on the phone for how they work, and you obtain, within an hour or so of counseling, your HUD certificate.
Okay.
With that, I was going to say...
with that, then
Sure.
they need the certificate, then you go to the appraisal, and then you kind of know at that point what you can get, correct?
Approximately.
Approximately,
After that
right.
15-minute conversation, we'll be able to give you an indication approximately as to the amount of the reverse mortgage that you can obtain, if you can obtain it.
Okay.
In order to obtain it, you need that counseling certificate, number one, and then you need to obtain an appraisal of the home. That's what the advancement of the reverse mortgage proceeds are based upon.
But they want to make sure, Stan, that you understand what you're getting into. That's the reason for the counseling, correct?
Absolutely, and the counselors, when they talk to the people, they present the positives and they certainly present the negatives so that everybody understands exactly what is involved.
Okay, we had a question that came up at one of the recent seminars that Stan and Lee have done, and we thought it was appropriate for this particular show. And the question really revolved around this: can I use the proceeds from a reverse mortgage to purchase another home, a car, or use the money for investment? Stan?
Yes, yes, yes. You can use the money to do with whatever it is that you want to do. Sometimes you'll lend the money to children, help pay for college for grandchildren. You can put the money in a bank as a cushion. You can do basically whatever you want to do with it. In the cases that we have been involved with, it's primarily utilized as a cushion against other kinds of things, as sort of like safety valve, and doing it that way to free up other kinds of things that they're doing.
Just be careful, though. Don't go near the blackjack table.
That's a whole different
Lee?
story.
You had a story to tell us
we
about
have a story.
that?
We have a client we've been working with from handling her retirement and her assets for many years. She came to us and said, "Do you guys handle reverse mortgages?" And we said yes. She said, "Because I've heard some mixed reactions among my girlfriends. One of which was, I did a reverse mortgage, I'm very happy. The other one was, I did a reverse mortgage, and I'm not so happy with my reverse mortgage." So I said to her name, Alice, if you're out there, hello. Okay, I understand the one that's happy. The one that's not so happy, give me some indication as to what happened. Why is she not happy? Well, she did a reverse mortgage for about $180,000, $85,000, and she only has $62,000 left of her $185,000.
And the kicker is she lives close to Atlantic City, correct?
She's within driving distance.
Okay, within
of
driving
Atlantic
distance.
Egg
City.
Harbor Township.
Okay,
It's
so-
not that she has a problem with the reverse mortgage and what she did.
She wasn't prudent with the money.
That's
wasn't
it.
prudent with
That's
it. No.
exactly
Okay.
right.
That's her own decision.
Right.
So the idea is the reverse mortgage is a tool in our practice as part of the SHM Financial Group. If it makes sense, it's just something that
Something you can direct them to
And help them assist them with.
utilize it properly.
It's just another tool in our toolkit, so
Okay.
to speak.
Now, there are a couple of steps here. We've gone over these, but we want to show you, before we leave you tonight, what the steps are in order to obtain the reverse mortgage. You call the toll-free number. There it is, 1-855-HUD-REVERSE. We'll assist you in completing a phone interview with a HUD counselor. Then an appraisal will be conducted on your home, and finally, proceeds for your reverse mortgage will be determined after the results of the appraisal and how much equity is in your home. That pretty much is it, Lee?
And that's
That's
pretty
it.
much it.
Right.
And this whole process, probably start to finish, you pick up the phone, you call 1-855-HUD-REVERSE. That's 1-855-HUD, H-U-D, reverse. Within 15 minutes, we'll have an indication as to what's available to you as far as the amount, approximately, of the reverse mortgage, if it's the direction you went ahead. You obtain your counseling certificate. We sit back down with you. and we go over the process of obtaining the reverse mortgage, which is a thick application. Long story short, within 60 to 90 days,
You'll know.
We're done.
You'll know what you're getting within 60
Yes,
to 90 days.
correct.
Okay. We have questions, as we always do here on the show. These are questions that have come in from a variety of sources, some from our radio shows, some from seminars, and just general email questions. This is Rick in Sewell, New Jersey. He said, my sister took out a reverse mortgage on her home in Florida, but she's lived there a long time. I've been in my home about 5 years, and I'm not sure if I qualify for a reverse mortgage, but I could sure use the money. How do I know if I qualify? Back to what you kind of just said. Stan, you want to answer that?
Well, Rick, first of all, you have to be 62 or older.
Correct.
Assuming that's the case, then you just go through the process that Lee explained. You make a quick phone call, which he's done. He then is in the process of getting the counseling to determine if he really wants to go through with it. At that point, then the appraisal will be done, and then he'll determine how much he could then receive. He has a mortgage. He'll pay off that mortgage amount if he decides to go through with it, and he'll put the difference in his account, in his bank account, to use as a cushion against whatever emergencies pop up.
now let me just say this, he doesn't actually have to pay off the mortgage, but the proceeds of the reverse mortgage
Pays off the
Pays
mortgage.
pays off. So
Well-
if he has a $300,000 home and a $100,000 mortgage, and he gets a reverse mortgage for approximately $150,000, the $100,000 that he owes will be paid off.
Right.
So
The
that's gone.
That's gone.
Now he's
He
got
makes
50.
he has no more payments
No more
to make on
payments.
his 100 because that's gone. He has 50 to do with what he wishes, and he continued to live his life. It saves him whatever that amount of monthly
In that case, it was
indebtedness.
$1,100 a month.
That's a big number for
Sure.
somebody who's 62 or
Well,
older who
because-
may not be working,
I mean, his mortgage rate was like 6.75%.
which is high.
Which was high.
And he was having some issues, if I'm not mistaken, the same gentleman. He was not working.
Right.
So he couldn't qualify for a regular mortgage because he didn't have income.
Right.
Exactly.
But the reverse mortgage is not based upon income, it's based upon the appraised value of the
Okay,
home.
we have time for one more question here. Let's see if we can squeeze this one in. This is from Rebecca in Bristol, PA. She says, my church group and I get together often. We discuss a lot of things. One of the women got a reverse mortgage recently. I don't understand it, but the rest of us, about 6 or 7 other women, thought it was a horrible thing to do. We told her she could lose her home someday. Is that true, Lee? Is that true?
I hesitate to say the answer is no. She can't unless if something happens to her, she gets very sick and ill and has to be forced into a nursing home.
But it had nothing to do with the reverse mortgage, correct?
That's correct.
Right.
But if she's out of the home, she's out of her home and living in a nursing care facility, a year and a day later, her house has to be sold, listed and sold. So therefore, I guess technically she would be out of the house, but it's not because she's not forced out of the house, but from the reverse mortgage.
You have to live in it for the. You have to.
You
live
have to
in it.
live in your.
Right.
It has to
For-
be your primary residence, and you have to be living in the.
But the
home.
house gets sold. What has been advanced gets paid back, and whatever the difference is goes to her if she's still alive, and if she passes on, then balance goes to her beneficiary.
Well, we hope you learned a lot tonight here on the show about reverse mortgages. Remember that toll-free number, 1-855-HUD-REVERSE, 1-855-HUD-REVERSE. If you have a question, do you qualify? Any kind of a question, give them a call. That's going to put the wraps on another edition of Molotsky on Money. For Stan and for Lee Molotsky, I'm your host, John DeMasi. Always a pleasure. Thanks for watching. We'll talk to you next week at the same time. Take care.
Do you know what your risk tolerance is when it comes to your investments? Do you know exactly what you have in your portfolio? The SHM Financial Group have developed a very important program called the Financial Stress Test. It's simple, quick, and can help you in your future financial plans. Contact the SHM Financial Group to schedule it. Offices in Collingswood, Voorhees, and Lakehurst, New Jersey. Call 1-800-MONEY-SHM. That's 1-800-666-3974. Join Stan and Lee Molotsky and their guests for their next series of all-important workshops. It's a unique opportunity for you to meet Stan and Lee and the SHM Financial Group, as well as have your questions answered. All workshops are complimentary and include lunch or dinner.